Well, good evening and welcome back to another episode of What's So Funny, the show that probes the minds, the brains, the psyches of the people who make the funny. Tonight, we return to Las Vegas for one more chat. This time, it's with stand-up comic, impressionist Dave Burleigh. Now, if you don't know who that is, neither did I at the time, but the California boy finished second in the prestigious San Francisco International Comedy Competition in 2005. And if he has his way, you'll soon know him as a regular on the Vegas Strip. And we're joined intermittently in conversation by new Vegas resident and former Vancouverite, Richard Kiss. So let's head up the elevator to the 20th floor of the Flamingo Hotel and get this party started, shall we? High atop the Flamingo Hotel overlooking, Las Vegas, the Bellagio, Bally's. We're with former What's So Funny guest, Richard Kiss, and a buddy of his, hey. Dave Burleigh. Dave, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
I met you about a minute ago.
Yep.
What's your story, your backstory? How long have you been doing comedy?
About 15 years.
15 years?
Yeah.
All in California?
No, pretty much over the West Coast, which would be California. And then the Northwest and Southeast and cruise ships and corporate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get back east too much.
A working comic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Traveling. Trying to stay in Vegas more, though.
So, but yeah, that's what I mean. Where were you based all those 15 years?
Half of it in Northern California, and then up until about 10 months ago, Los Angeles. So about 7 years in Northern California and 7 years in Southern California.
So you go from L.A. to Vegas. Now you're based here?
Yeah. Moved here about 10 months ago. They're giving houses away, I heard. You show up with a coupon and some eggs and a steak, and
so
it's a trade.
One?
Yeah, so.
That's pretty sweet. Housing is cheap, but what about the cost of living?
It's pretty cheap as well. I mean,
you
can ask Richard. Richard knows his way around a buffet like nobody's business.
It's cheap, except for health insurance, car insurance is more, but food is so much cheaper than California and pretty much anything else you can think of.
But other than that, okay, so you got a cheap house,
yeah,
or accommodation or wherever you're staying. What else? I mean, L.A. You think L.A. That's where you got to be a comic, right?
Yeah, you know what I found was that like in Los Angeles, it seems like I've put this together actually in the last 2 months, this theory. But in L.A., it seemed like there was tons of talent and not a lot of opportunity. I'd go on an audition, and there were 124 guys just like me for one part.
Acting.
Yeah. And that might even be like a really shitty role that you don't like the writing of at all, but yet for some reason you want that.
Yes, of course.
And then,
all those other guys want it.
Right.
So you feel that you should have it too.
And then you get usually a parking ticket while you're at the audition, so that compounds the rejection.
You can write that off, can't you?
Yeah, sure.
It's work related.
And in traffic and stuff. So what I found was that being here in Vegas just these last 10 months, I found that there seems to be more opportunity, and it seems like I don't want to say the talent pool is diluted here, but it seems like everybody goes to LA. So there's a lot of talented people there going for one specific job. Where out here, it seems like there's a lot more opportunity, and maybe people who haven't been in the industry for that long, so unless they're a huge name like Donnie and Marie. Do you guys know them?
Okay. I had a big crush on Marie.
I still do. Yeah. I want that life-size poster they got downstairs.
She walked by me the other day on her cell phone going into her dressing room at the Flamingo.
Phenomenal.
I know. I just wanted to reach out.
It's just great that those two have been together all these years,
I know. So, more opportunity in Vegas for a comic, right? There's so many shows.
Well, I think, once again, there's a bunch in Los Angeles as well, but, half of them are bringers, where you got to bring half the audience, if not more. And then a lot of people won't show up at them. So you'll have like 12 people in the audience, and, maybe half of those people are comics. It just seems like the rooms out here when when tourism's at its peak, it just seems like they're full and everybody's wanting to laugh. Whereas in L.A., it's you got a screenwriter who's a little jaded, and maybe the rest of the comics are. I don't know. It just seems like a different vibe out here. Once again, more opportunity, I think.
My perception of Vegas is that it's like going on the road without going on the road because people come from everywhere, right?
Yeah, including friends and family, who always want to go out and party and stuff, and they don't realize if you lived anywhere else in the world, people wouldn't come out and say, "All right, let's go blow off a hooker's ass," at the tarmac at McCarran Airport, and then go get some breakfast at 7 a.m.
But your family is saying that to you?
Well, that's my mom, which is weird. But, it's family, so you got to show them a good time.
And it is
in
Vegas.
Town. Yeah, that's true.
Richard, you were saying the differences in audiences between San Francisco and Vegas.
Well, I think the audiences in San Francisco are smarter, and they're more interested in stuff that's intellectual. And I think this is more of a slice of the world as a whole, because to live in San Francisco, you got to be able to afford your $2,000 a month rent. It requires a certain level of either intelligence or willingness to live poorly in other areas.
You buy that, Richard or Dave?
I do.
That
I don't buy $2,000 a month. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. That the audiences are smarter in San Francisco.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And how does that manifest itself? How do you know that?
I think that they like to think of themselves little bit more of a forward-thinking city, kind of ahead of the curve a bit, and that can help or hurt you. You definitely have to alter your material when you're in San Francisco from when you're in even Vegas or Minnesota.
So, what kind of material would you leave out in San Francisco?
I probably would avoid impressions. And
oh yeah, you do a lot of impressions, don't you?
Yeah, and I politics could help you or hurt you in that type of environment.
So if you're liberal, that would help you.
Yes,
right,
for the most part. But if I do dip into like political stuff, I try to paint it with a broad brush and put everybody in there, so that no one's really too upset. Now, if you're on a cruise ship, it seems to be all crazy right-wing religious nuts who don't appreciate me or my George Bush impressions or my Sarah Palin.
Oh, you do a Sarah Palin?
Oh, we're going to get all mavericky up in here. Yeah, that's right. I will get my kids trip, trap, crapping right on it. That's about as high as I can get on the register.
The impressions, it's interesting. Yeah, there is a lot of comics poo-poo impression, right?
Yeah. Well, I think what happened was like in the 80s and 90s, it was considered hack, like hacky guys would do impressions, and it was more or less left for sketch shows like Saturday Night Live or SCTV.
Yeah, it was never considered hack for those shows.
No.
Everyone loved them.
Right, because that was their home. But when you got into clubs, it almost seemed like, okay, here comes another Jack Nicholson. How many of those do we need to see?
Right.
And now I think what happened was comics got away from it. Going into 2010, 2011, it seems like there's a handful of guys who do them, and so it's still this kind of this lost art form that I think people still appreciate, especially if you do one that's a bit more obscure. That
and you have material to back it up, and it's not just the voice.
Right.
Well,
that's the trickiest thing, because when doing an impression, you've got to come up with a funny premise, so you got to have them in a funny situation. Then you got to nail the voice, and then you got to put a joke in there. So it's like there's 3 levels to a good impression.
Right.
So
you don't do that thing where you turn around?
No, yeah, I think that's kind of that's
I'd love to see
from
that
the
come
80s
back
as well, right? It's like, oh no, okay, it's the same guy. Okay, right. Just with his eyebrows frowning.
Who's the most obscure impression you do? Sarah Palin's pretty obscure.
I think right now I like I have fun with Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn together on Dancing with the Stars. That's how I put them together.
Let me hear some Vince Vaughn. Can you?
Yeah. So Owen's asking to dance with Vince. So he'd be like, Yeah, this is really cool being here with you tonight, Vince. I mean, I'm starting to get in touch with my sensitive side. I think maybe we should dance together. I mean, you're my dog. You're a great dog. You are. Yeah, I see what you're doing there, kid, and I got to tell you, it's creeping me out, okay? And it's not a good creep, on the TLC tip creep with like Chili Chill and T-Boz and Left Eye Lopez. It's a bad creep, where you go to strip club. You just want to see a little TNA, and now you got a buffet with your TNA. Who needs that? Who's my baby? All grossed up? Here we go. All right, let's party.
I've always loved impressions. As a kid, I don't know how old you are. I think you're younger than I am. I'm pretty sure. There was a show called Copycats. Have you heard of this one?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Oh, you never got to see it?
No.
I don't. I think I looked it up. It might have lasted only a season, but there was Rich Little, Fred Travalena, Frank Gorshin, George Kirby, a woman. I can't remember the woman's name, and it was like a sketch show. And George Kirby, famous black comedian, great impressions. He did Archie Bunker, which was funny in itself.
Yeah.
He was black.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, it was a great show.
I wonder if you can track that down on YouTube.
I don't know. Maybe I should look.
You can track. I did a series of cartoons with celebrities' heads called Holy Weird, HOLY Weird, and we did only about 5 or 6 of them. They're on YouTube, and it's so amazing that if you use the actual person's likeness, their head on a cartoon, how much, and you nail the voice. It's amazing how much it resonates as the humor of it and the voice. I would love to do more animation. It'd be awesome.
So you worked with somebody else?
Yeah,
they approached you, or you
an animator,
them?
A buddy of mine. We just got together and we wrote them out. And
so why don't you do more?
Animation's a lot of work, apparently. Like he did all, hours and hours and hours.
No work for you though, right?
No. I think what happens is, that's the thing too. Like with YouTube, everything gets diluted, so you get all this stuff that, it's a great way to showcase your stuff, but at the same time, it's like there's so many things to see on there, that.
Right. There are a lot of clips of stand-up comics put to animation out there.
Yeah.
Now, right. And I love it. And it's funny, like you say, Impressions had a home in sketch comedy, Saturday Night Live, SCTV, etc., Man TV, and people love it there, and also things like this animation. I bet you the same people that look down on stand-up comics doing impressions would look at that Holy Weird thing and love it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think we tried to find a new avenue where we could use the impressions and then our creative writing and then the animation and put them all together, and I think they do. I think there might be a copyright as well, and we were worried about that down the line.
Copyright with what?
Well, if you're using impressions, there's like this tricky thing about how you can use people's likeness and pictures and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
And we use the actual person's head on this animation. So, and then we made their mouths move. So,
I think comedy and satire is protected, isn't it?
Yeah, I wonder. I think maybe you probably have to pay the person who took the picture of Vince Vaughn or Nicolas Cage. You know what I mean? At some point, they're going to go, wait, I took that outside of some bar on Sunset Strip. You guys owe me a fee of some sort. I don't. It's so tricky. The whole legal side of entertainment is really tricky.
Richard, what's your you do any impression?
Not really on purpose. No.
Everybody does. I once was in. Who was Rick Overton had a bunch of people in his hotel room after a show in Vancouver, and he went around the room. He says everybody, comic or not, does an impression, and he made everybody do an impression.
That's awesome.
So you have somebody that you do.
You do one.
We want to hear it.
You do one of Rick Overton, don't you?
Oh yeah, constantly. One time on stage, I think at an open mic, I did a hack. What's that guy's name? Go ahead, make my day.
Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, very, very obscure. So it's like Clint Eastwood at Subway. Go ahead, make my sandwich. And then Clint Eastwood doing online banking. Go ahead, make my car payment.
That is uncanny.
It had some Cookie Monster in it too, from Sesame Street.
So I want to know about Vegas shows. I walk down the Strip. There's a billboard for everybody, from really well-known people to people I've never heard of.
Yeah.
Right? And Richard,
so you've seen ours. Great. Oh, good.
Are you doing a show here?
No, not yet.
Not yet. You're working on it.
Yeah.
Richard was telling me about how how it works here.
Four walling. That's where you rent a room from a casino. They have tons of rooms, and just empty rooms sitting around.
Or a Greyhound bus depot, depending whichever's first.
Yeah, because these buildings are so huge. They've got some rooms that are unutilized or underutilized, so they'll rent them out by the week. So for $1,000 or $2,000. So if you want to produce a show, you rent the room and you produce the show, and there's some kind of revenue sharing at times. Like you may pay $1 or $2 a head to the casino, but and the casino may keep the bar tab. Depends on how the deal works. But you can run your show and do basically whatever you want, just as long as you keep people coming in and you can pay the bill.
And who pays for the billboards that are all over the place? Is that the performer who's producing the show, or is it the hotel, or do they share that? Do you know any of it?
It can vary. I mean, if it's a pure four wall, a lot of times you pay it all yourself. The producer pays it all yourself, but generally the more marketing money you put in, the more you keep on the back end. That's, I think, typically how it works.
So, Dave, you're looking to put on a show here, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm working on a show right now with a full band.
I love that.
4 or 5 piece band, yeah. So
I love that. I just saw a show in Vancouver last week, The Nasty Show. Jeff Ross hosted it, Ari Shafir, Thea Vidal, and Big J. Okerson. And there was a 4-piece band in the background. They played everybody on. When Jeff Ross was on, there were a lot of rim shots. Maybe too many, It's the Jay Lenoization of every joke gets a...
It's so it's a joke.
Yeah, I think the thing with the band is that we ran the show a couple times in San Francisco area, and I think what happened was the band got so excited about it because they've been playing, like shitty bars and weddings and, different events, the past 10 years, and I've been doing shitty bars and few weddings, the past 15 years. And so I think what happened was we were in this warehouse rehearsing, and then we got on stage, and the band just absolutely loved being part of a comedic act. I mean, you could see it because it was something, and I loved having a band behind me and doing my comedy. It was great.
What did they do? Do you do singing impressions? Or
yeah, there's
a
little bit of everything. There's some singing impressions. I'm trying to kind of take it beyond Cher and Rod Stewart and Michael Jackson, all that crap you see over and over again for the past 30 years here in Vegas. I want to take it to another level and make it like Not Your Father's Impressions and Not Your Father's Show. I don't know what your father watched. Did he watch Cher?
He played for Cher, but
is that right?
He was in a band. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Or he was a musician.
So
he
no
played
wonder
for
you
a
like
lot
that.
Of, Played for a lot of.
Are you
comics.
a musician?
No, not just at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, currently that's all I am right now too.
Yeah. So this was an idea of yours, and you put it on in San Francisco. How did it go over?
Great. We did 3 shows, great reviews, and just moving forward with the next step. And
so this was in a theater. How did that work?
Yeah, actually, it was a smaller venue. We basically wanted to see how we would do in front of 80 people, something like that. Mm-hmm. So was received really well, and we're kind of going to go in a direction with like corporations to start with, kind of work out the kinks on the road, doing like a corporate show. And when I say kinks, it's almost like everything's really well rehearsed and tight for an hour, but I have so many ideas and so many things that I want to put into the show that I think it's constantly going to be evolving. I was just telling Richard this on the way here. I was just thinking, I want to keep a show fresh. I don't want people to come back a year later and go, yeah, it's the same show.
Right.
It's same with comedians. I mean, I get tired of my own act. So I can only imagine the people who continually come to see me, like my mom.
I think when you said kinks, I thought you meant you were doing a Ray Davies impression.
Oh, there you go. No, we could do that.
Yeah,
sure.
You could.
Yeah. I think the thing that's so cool is like, a band, like a well-seasoned band, like you would know, you tell them something and they can just pick it up,
Exactly.
like within 8 minutes, they've got, and these guys are coming up on their 50s and they're seasoned veterans, and on time and responsible. And I thought it was going to be like herding cats trying to get the band together. Cause I was thinking along the lines of comedians, cause I've done,
right.
shows where I've collaborated with other comedians in the past, and it's just like, oh no, dude, when's the show? Friday? Oh man, no,
I'm gonna be late.
I got dry cleaning or something I got to pick up. Like, and so it's like dry cleaning. You've never done dry cleaning, and so this is cool. Like I'm really excited about it, and I think it's kind of a next step in my career. And it's weird when you start doing something different. You feel like Madonna. You've reinvented yourself.
Really?
No,
No. Okay.
not at all.
you now the downside is that you have to share. I mean, stand-up comedy is you, right?
Yeah.
You get everything. You're responsible for whether it passes or fails, right?
Right.
And now you've got to share not only monetarily, but if the band is subpar or if they're fantastic, right?
Right.
That you're having to give up something.
You're saying financially.
I'm saying financially.
Yeah, we had this meeting last week, and so I think we're squared away on the numbers. So
yeah, it's gonna work out
as long as all of them keep laughing at every joke, even by the 372nd show.
So you tell them that.
Well,
this is your job. You
Yeah.
got to play, but you also have to act like you're enjoying.
Well, they're
it.
in acting classes right now as we speak, and all they have to do, their motivation is laughter.
Wow.
That's it.
They're going to Ed McMahon School of Acting.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that sounds great. And so you're pushing this, trying to find a room around town, or you're still going to develop it?
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, we're really going after the corporate market first. There's a showcase out here in Vegas where they have a conference, and they come around. The event planners from corporations around the country come out, and they watch the shows, and basically you could fill up a calendar year if they like your show. I mean, they sign you right there, say we'd like you for our sales kickoff in November, and I've got a great corporate manager behind me, and so I think we're kind of going to go that direction and really, really tighten up the show, and then try to bring it in somewhere like here.
So is this a mini audition that you do, like 15 minutes?
Yeah,
or something?
Exactly.
And how do you present yourself? What do you show in that 15 minutes?
Well, it's primarily going to be me and the band doing probably our best. It would probably be each 5-minute blocks of our best stuff of the hour show. We want the show at an hour, and it's currently at an hour 20.
Oh,
so
really?
That's
nice.
It's better than having 20 minutes and looking for another 40 or so. So
but the whole 15 minutes in this little mini audition isn't you singing with the band, right? Because there's you doing stand-up too.
Right. Well, and that's what we're trying to figure out too, is how do we marry that into it without making it a stand-up show or making it a traditional singing impression show. I kind of want the best of both worlds, and we're having a blast doing it right now. And I think what's going to happen is we love so many of the bits that we have in the show that I think what we're going to do is have to just tighten them down, just make them like 2 minutes or less each, and so. It's going to be quick moving, quick paced, and I think like 15 minutes. That would be, we would probably just rattle through a bunch of impressions, music, and I'd probably do a little stand up. Play the piano when I do some stand up, and the band also plays behind me.
Oh,
so,
do you?
Yeah.
So it's just sort of as your own background music when you're doing stand up. I think Zach Galifianakis has done that.
Yeah. Like Steve Martin used to do it too, with like the banjo and stuff, and like Nick Thune and stuff like that. I think, taking it to another level now with having the entire band playing in the background is pretty cool. Like some jazz, some cool jazz or something like that, just while I'm throwing some one-liners in there.
Walking bass.
But I seriously think there's only like probably 2 minutes available for stand-up. There's so much other theatrical production stuff going on, and I don't mean like wigs and costume changes and all that.
But that's in the 15 minutes. In an hour, how much just pure stand-up would there be?
Probably 12 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what I've done is I've taken my stand-up act over the years, and I've put it into music, and like a bit with the band, or use the singer. There's a backup singer, and I use him kind of as my Paul Schaefer, and so
a male backup singer.
Yeah. Well, he can get up there pretty high. I found that it's very hard to hit those high notes like Journey and stuff. And
what you need is some showgirls.
Absolutely. Well, that's the point. Richard, would you?
I'm down.
Oh, cool. Well, a few, right?
No, but every show I've seen, right?
Yeah,
showgirls,
right?
Whether they're bringing them on or
Yeah. Maybe I could get Marie. Think Donnie would let her go on like a Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday?
That sounds great. Sounds like a show that I would like to see.
Cool.
So good luck with that. Why would you want it only an hour? Why not an hour 20?
I've been to a lot of shows, whether it's on cruise ships or here in that's where we are, Las Vegas, Nevada. And it seems like that's kind of a magic number, 52 an hour. Like a standard headliner set for a comedian is 45. And a headliner set for a production seems to be around an hour 15, hour 20. And I personally think that's too long. I think the way people are these days, with, multimedia and, YouTube and, their PDAs in their hands and always on the go and shortest attention span. I want them to get done with an hour and then just look at their watch and go, wow, I thought only 15 minutes went by.
Right.
Whereas I think for whatever reason, that hour 15, hour 20 is just a little too much. Yeah.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
is that something that you would try out when you do the
Yeah.
corporate?
Probably. I think with our thing for the corporate thing is our upsell is the band plays 2 hours of dance music after. So, and then I make a cameo appearance with the band while the company's dancing and stuff. And the band rips. I mean, they are tight, really good. The guitarist is just a beast. And
Bass guitar, piano, drums.
We've got keys, drums, bass, and lead guitar, and then background singer, backup singer, or lead singer, I should say.
And do you? I was talking to Brian McKim last night about wardrobe.
Yeah.
Said a lot of comics don't
Wear
give
clothing.
any consideration to what they wear on stage. Now, of course, this is a big production. You would like, what would it be? A tux, suit?
I continually think of that, and it's. I think what's standard around here is probably they're probably just because they get too hot going to and from the show, but is like just black slacks and a black shirt, especially for impressions. For whatever reason, that works because it highlights your face. So if you have like any white or reds, it can kind of be a little distracting. But basically, if you have a black backdrop, black pants, black long sleeve shirt, then you're basically just a floating head. And
sequins. You need some sequins.
Sure, we can go Liberace.
Yeah,
I'll do that. But yeah, I've been trying to give that some thought. I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure it'll all shake out. And then I never know whether to have the band matching me or not.
All right. Well, the band definitely should be black.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Like a Motown black, or
I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. Oh, like wearing black.
Oh, wearing
like
black.
They don't need to be a black band.
Okay. Yeah. No, they don't.
Yeah. Well, these guys can play some funk. They get away with it. These white guys. So.
No, I mean, because they're in the background.
Yeah.
They're just all wearing, black suit.
Right. Yeah. I'm just one step at a time. I'm just working on making sure they laugh.
What is your ETA on this?
Well, I would like to have everything wrapped up, the show really tight and done by the end of the summer. And then so we have a few corporate gigs scheduled for this, the end of this year. And then do the showcase in January, and then run it primarily in corporate and probably around town here as well, and then try to get into a room long term. So probably long term in Vegas, probably the end of next year, I'd say.
So look for that.
For about a year from now.
Dave Burleigh, those big billboards.
That's it, yeah. And Richard Kiss will be there too.
He'll be the opener?
No, he'll be putting up the billboard.
How did you get into comedy? Were you doing voices as a kid?
Yeah, I did them when I was 6. I mean, I did them for my uncle.
Who was your?
I was doing like Paul Lynde, and yeah, that was good. And Howard, the main ones, Howard Cosell and John Wayne, and I'd do them for my uncle and my dad. And then I just didn't do anything for a while. I mean, I did a couple of school plays, and then I went to college, Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and they had an open mic night, and a buddy and I dared each other to do it, and I did 2 minutes, and I was hooked at a biker bar. Loved it. And I think at that point I was doing Casey Kasem was my first one, but it was basically Dana Carvey doing Casey Kasem.
Oh, yeah. Dana Carvey. Now that's interesting when you get somebody doing somebody. How does that even work? Oh, I see. Because Dana Carvey used to do Casey Kasem.
So I would watch him, and then I would.
Right. I heard that as a kid. As I said, I loved impressions. That Impressionists often look to other Impressionists to learn how to do it. I mean, who started the Christopher Walken one, right? And then everybody does it after that.
It's so funny that you should say that, because I just had breakfast with my good friend Ian Harris, a comedian who's been around for about 20 years. And more of a writer now and film director. But we had breakfast down in Santa Monica 2 days ago, and he swears he is the first guy to do Christopher Walken, and Kevin Pollak saw him do it.
Really?
And it was Ian doing Christopher Walken. He was doing the scene from True Romance with remember that where it's Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
And they're in that famous scene, and they're in and he was doing a Dennis Hopper impression.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was really working hard on his Dennis Hopper impression, and then to put the whole thing together, he just threw in Walken saying, it's crazy or whatever he said in the movie. And so he got done, with his set one night in Hollywood, and somebody came up and they said, yeah, the Dennis Hopper was okay, but that Christopher Walken was amazing. And that was the one he didn't even care about. It was like a throwaway impression. And then so he did it at Rooster T. Feathers in Sunnyvale, and Kevin Pollak was there in the crowd working that night as well. And Pollak said when he was on like I don't know, he was on the Tonight Show or whatever, Letterman or something. He said he saw a kid in California doing it, and that's how he did it.
Interesting.
So yeah, and no one was doing it before that.
And that's not, or is it? You can tell me, stealing.
No,
because you still have to do it.
It's weird because some comics are just adamant about, this is mine, nobody else can do it. It's like, well, if a crowd goes nuts and somebody can do impressions, they're gonna put that in their act. There's just no way around it. That's like somebody saying, whoever did Jack Nicholson the first time.
Yeah.
So you can't do Jack Nicholson. I'm the only one who does Jack Nicholson. But you still get that today, especially like in Hollywood. Like if you go around and you're the only one doing whoever. I mean, it can be really, say you're doing a Jack Black and there's not a lot of Jack Blacks going around, and somebody goes, that's mine. I do Jack Black.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is that little area of joke stealing, which is just taboo.
Yeah.
So you're not really stealing a joke. You're just stealing. If you wrote a different bit, of Jack Black at a bus stop instead of washing dishes, and you wrote the joke, and your impression's a little different,
So how many of you created, do you know, that you hadn't heard anyone else do?
I do a great one of my buddy Steve that
I heard it's amazing.
Yeah, it's spot on. Here, I'll do it for you. Pass the ketchup. That was it. But if you knew Steve, amazing. I did, Steve. Yeah, Steve keeps telling me that is mine. That is me. I don't know. I'm working on. I have some originals right now that I'm working on in the lab.
Yeah. So you watch clips of them. You isolate their idiosyncrasies.
Yeah, I think it is. It's little nuances that you hear them say. Like, for instance, like Christopher Walken. I was telling you, my buddy Ian helped me with my walk-in. We were just joking around one day, and it helps if you do them all day long. And so we were having blueberry pancakes, and so he goes, I'll have some blueberry pancakes. And it was like, whoa, you just put that little weird cadence in there with the blueberry, and now it's just become this part of my act. I named my CD Blueberry Pie. It's awesome. And just if you get those little nuances and you plug them into the crowd and they hit every time, then you've got something.
Yeah, those little phrases. Again, when I was a kid, Cary Grant was saying Judy, 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 right? And apparently he never said that.
You are older than me, by the way.
Well, no, because Impressionists always
worked
from the 40s, 50s, 60s, even though it was in the 70s.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Well, I've been on these ships, and I second guessed my crowd completely over the last 3 or 4 years, and because I've been doing the Jimmy Stewart and the John Wayne and the Neil Diamond, thinking that's what they wanted. And I was sitting at the bar recently on the ship, and this woman's sitting there, and she goes, "Can I just tell you, thank you so much for the Nicolas Cage and the Owen Wilson and the Vince Vaughn." And she goes, "I am so tired of all that Neil Diamond bullshit."
Mm-hmm.
And I go, "How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?" She goes, "I'm 73." But she goes, "But my children have children, and I sit around and we watch, Wedding Crashers in the background while I'm making dinner, and I know who these people are. They're on Jay Leno at night. It's not like, I don't need Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin shoved down my throat. I get it. It's been done. I'm like, God bless you, lady. You're my new publicist.
That's right. I saw Rich Little a couple years ago, still doing Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
And, whoever else.
Yeah.
But I guess it's harder as you get older just to, I mean, there's so many people. Owen Wilson has a really distinctive way of speaking, right? Most celebrities these days don't.
Right.
They just sound like you or I.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, it's weird where you're sitting in an audience and then sometimes people throw out requests and they'll say Clint Eastwood or Arnold Schwarzenegger or Jack Nicholson, and it's just like, so obviously, people who aren't, comedy savvy go thinking that, that's just the standard. You got to do the standards, right? And where I'm, rolling my eyes and comedy aficionados and fellow comics are rolling their eyes, I mean, how many Schwarzeneggers do you really need to hear,
Yeah.
And I guess it just depends on the venue and the crowd, and sometimes I'll do a bit where I think impressions will kill in a room, and nothing. It's like, the set's going so great, with just my regular stand up, and then I go, oh well, they're gonna love the impressions, and then I do impressions, and they're like, oh well, wait, what are you doing here? And I'm like, whoops, misread that crowd, or vice versa, like maybe my jokes are tanking, and it's a soft crowd, and then as soon as I do impressions, the place lights up,
Right.
So it's weird. It's just a weird. And I think the hardest thing with impressions is transitioning out of just your regular stand-up set,
I guess the good thing about if you get this show rolling with the band, people will know going in what you do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Here's a comedy impressionist.
Yeah, but I'm trying to make it a little cooler and a little hipper, and I think with, like, we got some audio cues and some visual cues and the lighting and all that. I think that's definitely gonna kind of take it a notch above and make it a little cooler, so that the 73-year-old woman who does, spend the 40, 50, 60 bucks in Vegas to go see a show and wants to see, a little more mainstream, impressions or references, she's going to get it, instead of, Cher or Rod Stewart or Elvis, which has been done to death,
Yeah.
I think.
You're not going to dress up like them.
I don't think so. I've wrestled with it, but I don't think so. I think it it cheapens it a little bit,
Yeah, because then it's just a more visual thing. You dress
Yeah.
up like somebody, people are automatically going to hear them,
Yeah.
even if you're off a bit,
Right.
right? And the music's playing a song, they know that this person is done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just always I've done it before where I've put on the wigs and stuff, like for Willie Nelson and all that stuff, and I'm like, it's been done, and I feel like a jackass doing it.
Mhm.
Whereas I think it's a little more stand up and a little more raw if it's just me. I could be wrong. I mean, that could change,
Sure.
depending on.
It's an evolution.
Yeah.
Well, who's the greatest impressionist of all time? In your opinion?
I don't. That's hard to say because there's I don't. The one I was inspired by the most to start doing impressions was Eddie Murphy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Delirious, the first one, first HBO special,
And
where
doing
he
Bill
did
Cosby. And...
and he did Elvis, and he did Michael Jackson, and he sang a little bit, and it's just like it was almost like no one expected it from him, and they were so good that it was
it's Stevie Wonder.
yeah, I did Stevie Wonder, exactly. And then I think that's who really inspired me to do it. Obviously Caliendo's got he's got some great ones that he does, but Dana Carvey, he's they aren't spot on, but they're funny.
Right. They are exact impressions.
Right.
By the truest sense of the word.
Yeah.
They're just an impression of the person.
Yeah, and he makes it goofy and funny, and coming
Yeah.
from him, I think it's really entertaining.
So you mentioned cruise ships. Again, something that a lot of comics look down on. But to me, I think, hey, you're working comic,
Yeah.
pays well, you're performing nightly or however often you do it.
Well, I think it's totally changed now as well as the impressions. I mean, it's the exact same thing. Like in the 80s and 90s, it was just so hacked to go out on cruise ships. And now that they've built these huge ocean liners, just even like last year, the Oasis of the Seas, which is by Royal Caribbean, It's like 6 football fields long. It it holds thousands of people.
It's unsinkable.
There's 26 restaurants, but they have a comedy club on board.
Yeah, a club,
Yes,
right?
yeah. So it's low ceilings. It seats about maybe 400 at the most.
Is it like a regular comedy club where there'll be an MC and then a middle and then
Yes,
a headliner?
exactly. And that's the ships are finally starting to get it, so that if you want to go see the production show, of Singing in the Rain or whatever that the crew's putting on in the main theater, you can go see that bullshit. Or you can go to a comedy club, at midnight, a late night comedy club where you're stuck in the middle of the ocean and watch a great adult comedy show. And they didn't have that back in the 80s and 90s. You had to be squeaky clean.
Yeah.
You had to have an hour and a half of squeaky clean material, which a lot of comics didn't. And I've had so many comics out of LA approach me and go, dude, how can I get on these cruise ships? And these guys are guys who would blow the roof off of, the Hollywood Improv or just kill any room. They've, been on other shows like Chelsea Lately and Comedy Central. And I get them their DVD and give it to my agent, and they're just like, we're full. I'm sorry. We've got too many comics too many great comics now who want to be on ships. Because the money's so good. And these guys, will go to Des Moines, Iowa and, make their $1,000 a week and stay in, the Motel 6 and nobody knows who they are. Or you can go out on a ship and be the rock star of the ship and work an hour and a half the entire week and sit on the beach in the Bahamas, and be fed. You like that, don't you, Richard? Being fed?
Yeah, I like being fed.
He loves the buffets.
Do you still need to have a segment of clean material for any shows there on a ship?
Yeah, sometimes you'll have to do like a family show, like a 7:00 family show, and then you feel a little awkward, talking about your rape kit bit, and there's a 6-year-old with her, dad there in the front row.
As you should feel awkward.
Well, yeah. And then they don't ask you to do that ship again. But no, I think that's what's great about doing corporate and ships is it really makes you work clean. I mean, it's a great training ground to get a clean 6-7 minute TV set, So
yeah. And so you just got in at the right time because now you say they're full.
Yeah, I was in the San Francisco comedy competition in 2005, and I came in second place to Don Friesen, who worked a lot of ships, and he said, you should do some ships, man, because your act's clean. And so I submitted my DVD to his agent, and then they hired me right away. And then I'd say within like 3 years, like 2008, there was just this influx of like comics, even comics who did him like 20 years ago are coming back, with a whole different act, and they're killing it out there. I mean, these guys are funny, and they're out there. And they won't tell you, or you won't see it on their website because it's still it has that stigma to it,
Right.
Like, I'm doing ships. But at the same time, you'd be surprised at some of the comics that are out there that are doing ships.
You don't want to say.
I don't. But, okay, Chris Rock. I saw him out on the ship last week now.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a fun gig. How often are you doing those?
Well, I was doing them. I did a run in November, through December, so it was 2 months straight, and I almost jumped overboard. And I'll never do that again. 2 months straight on 3 different ships.
Yeah, you get seasick?
No.
You've never been in a big storm?
Yeah, in the winter, going up the eastern seaboard there, or a crossing, like an Atlantic crossing.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to do just one a month now, so I'll turn down work just because I would rather stay in town and work on the new show.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, so I could see that new show also being on a cruise ship.
Right. Well, I have worked a lot of it out on the ships because I get to use the orchestra, and
Nice.
It's messing me up a little bit because you got to give them charts and stuff.
Yeah. Where do you get the charts? Who does them?
Usually a guy on the ship will do them. For some black tar heroin, usually, or a back rub. But I don't want to get into that. But no, it's interesting. You go from a 7-piece orchestra to my 4-piece rock band, and it's like, wow, at least I have options now.
Right.
So
yeah. Now I want to hear both your guys's, Dave Burleigh, Richard Kiss, horror stories in the comedy world. Because comics have these just hellish gigs. I'll pass the mic over. See, we haven't heard much from Richard because we only have 2 mics, but I'm going to pass it over to both you guys and just, tell me your worst maybe experience performing comedy?
I did a triple run last year. That's where I flew into Portland, and the headliner picked me up, and we drove to 3 small cities. And the first show was a double header. We did a 7:00 show and then a 9:00 show. First time I'd done 30 minutes, so I was a little nervous. And what made it worse is that when the 7:00 show ended, most of the people didn't even leave. They just stayed for the 9:00 show. So it's like, oh, great, they're going to hear all my same jokes again. And halfway through the set, someone bought a drink and sent it up. And I don't drink. I don't usually drink. So I just like put it on the seat, and then everyone started chanting, "Drink it, drink it, drink it." So man, that was a lot of peer pressure. It was very brutal for me. But it's a good induction into road comedy, I'll tell you.
And did you drink it?
I finally just gave up and drank it. I gave in, and I was very ashamed.
And plastered too? Did it affect you?
No, I don't drink, but I don't think I'm a lightweight either. I don't know why. I think just because I'm so big.
And have you had those flop sweat moment shows?
Yeah, I was on what's known as a triple run, and there was this comic who had never had a drink before, and this guy was hammered, and he wouldn't get off the stage. No,
Kept doing the same jokes.
yeah. I'd say breakfast comedy in just outside of Toronto. It
What could go wrong with breakfast comedy?
was a corporate gig, and was a company out of Montreal that will be left nameless. And there was the CEO. We'll call him Pepe Le Pew. It was something like that. And I was there for 4 days, and I would do their morning sessions. So I would come in at 9 a.m., and none of them wanted to be there. The market had just tanked. They were looking out this glass window. I mean, you talk about torture. These poor guys were stuck in this building for 4 days straight, and they're looking at like this beautiful pool and golf courses and stuff, and that's what they had to stare at all day while listening to boring speeches. So I would come in, and I was supposed to kick it off in the morning and do this comedy that was not going well until I figured that, you know what, I'm going to do an impersonation of the CEO, Pepe Le Pew, on Wednesday. So this was during the Winter Olympics.
And he would be there.
Yes.
You're right.
So I went up there because I was not getting laughs for the first couple days. I mean, it was brutal. It was just horrible. Just because, when the 2-drink minimum is coffee and orange juice for comedy, it's not good. Comedy is not meant to be at 9 a.m. So
Did you look at it as an opportunity, a challenge, or did you just go, oh, this is going to be horrible?
I looked at it as a great paycheck, and yes, this was going to be horrible.
Okay.
So there was some opportunity for some financial gain, and I went in the third day, and I had recorded the night before my impression of Mr. Pepe Le Pew, and I can't even say his name because I think he's that big.
Really?
Yeah.
You tell me off air.
Okay. So I go in and I say, we were in the men's urinals. They had the TVs right in front of your face, so while you were taking a leak, you could watch TV. And so it was during the Winter Olympics, and this was what gave me the idea. As I was actually next to him, and I was watching the Winter Olympics, and I go, okay. So I went at home that night to the hotel, and I recorded an impression of him onto my tape recorder, of him telling me about how he was a world-class ice dancer in way back when in the Winter Olympics, and a curler. And so then I went back that next morning, and I got up there and I went, I was on the recording. I go, I told him, I said, before, I play this for you, I was in the restroom last night next to Pepe Le Pew, and he had told me about, he just went on and on about his prowess in the Olympics way back when, in the Winter Olympics, as an ice dancer. And then so I press play, and it's him. It's supposed to be him. It's me impersonating him, going, "Oh yes, I was so good at this ice dancing, and curling. I was amazing in my tutu and my rubbing the ice, And I just went on and on. Place is just busting up laughing. Everybody is laughing because now I've made, the CEO human to them.
Right.
It's relatable. It's just a goof on him. It's a big gag. They can't believe I'm doing it. And to this day, I can't believe I'm doing it. So he goes up to the Marcom manager after the show, and he goes, he says, "This Dave Burleigh, if he does one more impression of me, he will have to find his own flight home." And he was pissed. And I had one more day with him, and I went back, and then it was back to Jack Nicholson impressions the next day. So. But it was brutal. It was like the 24 hours I was there, I thought that CEO was going to come and kill me or have me killed.
Right.
It was that bad.
Oh,
But I think that's the thing. It's like, that's the thing that the CEOs or VP of sales don't get. That in a company, that's what they want. They want you to be okay being made fun of. Yet they're up on this pedestal, and they can't be brought down to your level, And it's like
they're all very insecure.
Yeah, and your employees want that. They finally were enjoying themselves,
right?
So
morning comedy can work.
Right, but you can also be stuck in Toronto looking for a paycheck and a flight home.
Have you worked much in Canada?
I haven't. Just a couple of corporate gigs, yeah. And then I was in Vancouver recently, just getting on and off a ship.
Right. You didn't perform?
No, before the city was trashed because they lost.
Yeah, well, it was going to be trashed either way, win or lose. That was my call.
What if it were a tie?
Yeah, that's impossible. I think it would have been trashed anyway.
But in America, we just trash it when we win. They don't trash them if they lose. No, I couldn't
that's
believe
right.
it.
Yeah. When the Lakers win, you always see it.
Yeah, the trash and the burning the city. You guys lose, and they trash it, which kind of makes more sense.
We'll get back at Boston by trashing our own
city, right?
Yeah, show you. And now I read quickly on your website today, Dave, that you've worked with some pretty famous comics. Now, how did that come about?
It's basically just being in the city, the Bay Area. It's a really rich comedic environment, and they seem to kind of just come through there one way or another. And so it would be, just some of the bookers locally knowing me, and then having confidence in booking me before them. I think being clean helps, being a clean comic.
Are you always clean?
No, I'm not.
As a comic. I mean, I know here you're filthy.
Especially with a shot of whiskey,
But your act, is it always clean?
Yeah.
Or you just have that ability?
I just have that ability, I think. In fact, I like working a little more loose and, having a couple of cocktails on stage and just having fun and letting it fly. That's where I feel really comfortable. Mm-hmm. Now with this new show, I can't. I've got to dial it back, and it's a lot more structured.
You want it family friendly?
No, it's definitely not family friendly. I got a lot of innuendos and stuff, and I push the envelope a lot. In fact, I just did a corporate show last week, and with 4 other comics, we were competing against each other. That's how they wanted it, this competition. They were going to vote for us.
At a corporate show?
Yeah.
And what would you win?
More money.
Oh,
than they were paying you, yeah. And I think some spring rolls and some chicken satay.
And a back rub.
Yeah, and a back rub.
But did you win?
I didn't win. No.
Oh.
No, I came in 3rd. But
bronze medal, that's not bad.
Yeah, not bad. But I pushed it. I think that was the problem. I had a few offensive things in there because I just got done working in Portland, where it was all about dick jokes, and that was the whole room and had always been that way. So it was like re-gearing my brain to squeaky clean corporate, and I think I offended a few people. But at the same time, if you're a comic and you're not offending a few people, then you're not doing your job at all. So have I offended either of you today?
We are unoffendable.
Oh.
So we were talking about you working with some of the big names, such as?
Robin Williams, Dana Carvey.
Heard of them, yeah.
George Lopez, Tim Allen. KC and the Sunshine Band.
Seriously?
KC's a good guy. Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah.
The Sunshine Band, dicks.
Yeah, not such great guys, Olivia Newton-John opened for her and didn't talk to me.
She didn't?
No.
Did you get close?
Yeah, I knocked on her door and I was like, hey, Sandra D, how you doing? Yeah, you want to dance or what? And then security didn't let me near her the rest of the night.
But most of these performers do talk to you as an opener?
Yeah, I think I have a good chance of opening for Dana Carvey next month here in Vegas for 3 nights in a row. And he's just really cool, just easygoing in the dressing room. And same with Robin Williams.
Pardon?
In the dressing room?
Yeah.
Green room? Sorry, I don't go into his dressing room.
He's easygoing in the green room.
Yeah. Yeah, and so they're not over pretentious or anything. I mean,
Right. I mean,
it's fun.
that's a misperception. Most aren't, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you get the occasional one. Olivia Newton-John, obviously,
right. Olivia
prima donna.
Newton-John, Richard Kiss, just to name a
Yeah.
couple.
But that's a nice perk, getting to work with those names.
Yeah, it is. I recently did a show with a magician comedian from the UK on a ship, and we became fast friends mainly because he bought the Jim Beam at every port, and then he was in the cabin next to mine, and we'd go over and drink cheap bourbon together and tell stories. This guy was a legend in the UK, and very funny, very Monty Python esque, I would say. And so, it was in my bio that I opened for all these people, and then, they said it. The cruise director said it beforehand that I opened for and all these, big name comedians. And we got to talking and drinking, and he's just like, it's so weird that Americans, like, you guys tell the audiences who you've worked for and who you've opened for. Like, we never do that in the UK. It just doesn't happen.
Why?
I don't know. He couldn't put his finger on it either. He goes, it's just like it
And
doesn't really matter. And it's
well, no one there is famous, Richard says.
no one wants to say I opened for the Spice Girls.
It tells you a credit. It tells you that somebody thought highly enough of you to be on this big show.
Yeah.
Right? Why wouldn't you want to say
I don't know. Maybe it's an old school way of thinking of just like make your own way.
They're more humble. So what was this guy's name?
Can't remember. no, Keith Fields. Great guy. Still a great friend. And yeah, it's just it just I couldn't believe that when he said that. I go, yeah, that's what comics do all over. He goes, I know. I just moved to Detroit. I know. A guy from the UK moved to Detroit as a comedian magician. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey guys, our time is up, and it was fun talking. Dave, can we see your act online?
Yeah, you can't see the new show. The new show's
not yet.
Yeah, keeping that under wraps.
Okay.
But yeah, anywhere on YouTube. I just did a Charlie Sheen impression that I'm really happy with on YouTube, where I'm playing the piano, telling jokes as Charlie.
Sweet.
So check that out.
And that's Dave Burleigh, Burleigh.
Yeah, French Canadian. Don't hold it against me.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So you have some of us in you.
I gotta go. This is getting weird. It is Vegas, isn't it?
Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
Thanks, Guy.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. The last of this triumvirate of interviews from Las Vegas, Nevada. Thanks to Dave Burleigh and Richard Kiss. I enjoyed that. Next week, we've got another interview I recorded a few weeks ago with the premier singing satirist, Roy Zimmerman. I've played him on this program a number of times, and I got the chance to talk to him for an hour a couple weeks ago. So next Sunday night, right here on Co-op Radio, 102.7 FM in Vancouver, you can hear Roy Zimmerman. Thanks for listening.